Part 27. Sky Coffin. Author, Qingnian Wanbao. Chapter 261. Huaxiu. Wake up! Wake up! While I was avoiding Huaxiu's attacks, I was also constantly trying to wake up Huaxiu. But Huaxiu seemed to not be able to hear me and attacked me crazily. Fighting against Huaxiu is like gambling on your life. If you are not careful, you will be torn apart by Huaxiu. Huaxiu had written it very clearly in the memo. She wanted to use the help of the corpse exorcists to survive the catastrophe, but she never expected that Lileza would manipulate her to attack me. Huaxiu exuded a suffocating corpse aura. Although her strength has been weakened, she is still not something I can deal with. Without me noticing, Huaxiu's sharp claws stabbed towards my chest. At the critical moment, countless black threads appeared from behind me. The sharp thread stabbed straight towards Huaxiu's body. The Ghost Master took action. I didn't have time to persuade Master Guishao to keep his hand, but I also knew that Master Guishao would not really hurt Huaxiu. As expected, Master Gui's silk threads could not hurt uniform Huaxiu at all. Seeing this scene, I no longer hesitated, and hit Huaxiu with the Thunder Ju in my hand. Thunder and lightning exploded, but they still couldn't hurt her at all. Huaxiu stretched out his claws and struck at my chest again. This time I couldn't avoid it. Just when I was about to be stabbed through my chest by Huaxiu, something strange happened. Huaxiu's long nails only penetrated my clothes and never penetrated any further. Seeing this scene, I shouted to Huaxiu, "Huaxiu! Wake up!" Huaxiu's beautiful eyes looked at me, full of confusion. Lileza looked shocked when he saw this scene. He quickly sat cross-legged on the ground and muttered something. The sober look in Huaxiu's eyes disappeared instantly. She screamed, and a powerful corpse aura spread from her body. It actually knocked me away. I struggled to stand up and looked at Huaxiu. Huaxiu's expression was extremely painful, as if he was fighting a fierce battle with something. At this moment, bursts of thunder came from the sky. Lin Duyan raised his hand and slapped Lileza hard on the head. "You are crazy. If you continue like this, it will definitely attract thunder. Do you really want this 1,000-year-old zombie to be destroyed in front of you and me?" Li Zizi closed his eyes tightly and wildly shook the soul-catching bell in his hand. His whole body began to tremble and he struggled to say a word. "I can't suppress her anymore. Senior brother, please help quickly." As soon as he finished speaking, a mouthful of blood spurted out of Lileza's mouth. When Lin Duyan saw this, he quickly sat down on the ground, took out the soul-seizing bell and shook it wildly. Seeing this scene, Zhang Xi quickly came to me and said, "Let's leave quickly while they suppress your sister." I glanced at Huaxiu, and then at brother Lin Duyan. Seeing my hesitation, Zhang Xi continued, "I have a way. Come with me quickly." Finally, he gritted his teeth and nodded, saying, "Let's go." After that, a few of us left the Miao family ancestral hall. They can only leave temporarily now. Lin Duyan and Lileza will not harm Huaxiu before the disaster comes. We can only leave here temporarily and then find a way to rescue Huaxiu. We rushed out of the Miao ancestral hall and ran along the village path towards the outside of the village. After walking a few steps, noisy voices could be heard in our ears, followed by the flickering of firelight, and dots of torches were heading towards us. He is a villager from Beiki village. Sky Coffin. Author, Qingnian Wanbao. Chapter 262. These villagers knew without thinking that they were here to stop us. They will not allow us to leave the village. Miao Fengluan took my hand, pointed in one direction and said, "Let's go this way." We no longer hesitated and ran in the direction Miao Fengluan pointed. There were flames and insults along the way, but under the leadership of Miao Fengluan, we cleverly avoided it. Just when I was about to leave the village, I felt a sharp pain in my chest. I clutched my chest and collapsed heavily to the ground. Immediately afterwards, I felt countless bugs burrowing into my chest and crawling crazily inside my body. Ah! I screamed and tore my clothes frantically. My clothes were torn to pieces, but the situation under the clothes scared everyone present. Lusu! Stop it! Stop it! Zhang Shi quickly grabbed my hand to stop me. I feel so uncomfortable. It feels like something is drilling into my body. Zhang Shi looked serious and said, yes, there is indeed something drilling into your body. I looked at my chest, and what I saw in front of me made me break into a cold sweat. The wedding dress I was wearing was torn into a mess. The red threads on the wedding dress were deeply embedded in my skin. They were squirming wildly, just like living insects. How is this going? Miao Fengluan hurriedly knelt down and gently put my head on her knees. She looked at the squirming red thread and said, he has been poisoned. We cannot leave this village. If we leave this village, the bugs will get into his body. Zhang Shi looked a little serious, standing there thinking about something. He suddenly looked at Miao Fengluan and said, if I'm not wrong, you have a way to solve this matter. Miao Fengluan nodded and replied, I do have a way to deal with these goo insects, but the first step is to leave the village. Zhang Shi pondered for a moment and said, let's find a place to hide first, and then I will think of a way. Miao Fengluan nodded and helped me up, I know a place. Come with me. In this way, Miao Fengluan helped me walk through the village, and finally came to the dilapidated block house. Miao Fengluan came to a corner, squatted down, cleared the weeds on the ground, then grabbed an iron ring and pulled hard, and a dungeon came into view. Then, Miao Fengluan supported me and walked into the passage. Master Ghost helped close the dungeon door and then covered it with weeds. After arranging everything, he floated down directly along the gap. It was very dry in the tunnel, so Miao Fengluan gently placed me on top of the weeds, and then lit the oil lamp in the tunnel. Dim light illuminates the dark dungeon. This time I also calmed down a bit. I struggled to sit up and looked at my body. Every part of my body has been penetrated by red threads, and the blood stained my clothes, making it even scarlet and brighter. The crazily squirming red threads have calmed down at this moment, and a large part of them has penetrated into my body. Miao Fengluan tore off the hem of her skirt, and then gently wiped the blood on my body. Does it hurt? Miao Fengluan raised her head and asked with some distress. I shook my head and said, it's okay. In fact, my physical condition is very poor, my limbs are weak, and there are faint signs of fever. Zhang Shi has been silent since entering the tunnel. After being silent for a while, he raised his head and said to Miao Fengluan, what is the method you mentioned? Miao Fengluan replied, I know a goo master. She has a way to cure Lu Su, but she is not in the village. After hearing this, Zhang Shi nodded. He slowly closed his eyes and kept calculating with his right hand. After a moment, he raised his head and said to Miao Fengluan, the next thing depends on you. Miao Fengluan let out a surprised sound, and then asked doubtfully, rely on me. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Sky Coffin. Author, Qingnian Wanbao. Chapter 263. Zhang Shi nodded and said, you are the only one who has the ability to leave here now. Miao Fengluan still didn't understand what Zhang Shi meant. Zhang Shi smiled slightly at Miao Fengluan and said, you Luohua cave girls all have one ability, and that is the ability to travel in the spirit. I've also heard about fugue travel, which means that the soul can leave the body and travel around various worlds. However, the risk of traveling in a fugue is extremely high, and you are likely to be attacked by lonely ghosts. Miao Fengluan was slightly stunned. She blinked and replied, I seem to know how to use this ability. Zhang Shi continued, as long as your ability is strong enough, you can go to all 6 realms, and some can even achieve divine concealment, completely hiding a person from this world. Having said this, I can already think of what Zhang Shi wants Miao Fengluan to do. He wanted Miao Fengluan to use the ability of Fugue to find the Gu Master. After listening to Zhang Shi's words, Miao Fengluan nodded, her pretty face full of determination, and she said, "Okay. I'll go find that Gu Master now." Zhang Shi shook his head and said, "Not yet, if you go, she may not necessarily help you." Miao Fengluan subconsciously asked, "Why?" Zhang Shi smiled and said, "She is only good to you, but not to others. Remember, when you see her, you must mention that Lu Su is Lu Linlong's grandson. Only in this way will she help you." Miao Fengluan agreed without thinking. She sat cross-legged on the ground and said to me, "Don't be afraid, I will beg her to save you." I opened my mouth and said weakly, "Be careful." Miao Fengluan smiled at Shan Ran, then closed her eyes tightly. I don't know how long it took, but a gust of wind blew by, and Miao Fengluan suddenly softened and fell to the ground. With quick eyes and hands, Master Gui quickly held Miao Fengluan, and then gently placed him on the weeds. Miao Fengluan is Hongluan Tiangzi, the last target of the double-faced Buddha of good and evil. No matter what, I must protect her and not let her fall into the hands of the double-faced Buddha. Zhang Shi came to me, stretched out his hand, and gently placed it on my forehead. Then I felt a warm current spread from his palm to my body. He took his hand back, looked at me very guiltily, and said, "I'm sorry, it was my negligence this time. If I had been more cautious and made more assumptions, this kind of thing wouldn't have happened." I shook my head at him, "It's not your fault." Zhang Shi fell into deep thought after hearing these words. After a moment, he raised his head and said, "I did plan to resolve your sister's matter here before. As for finding Li Leizi, it was my master's order. I don't know. Why would he do this? According to my master's character, he will not lie to me, but..." I knew from Zhang Shi's words that he had begun to suspect that these were deliberately arranged by his master. "Your master must not have considered Li Leizi's character, so don't take this matter to heart." Zhang Shi looked up at me, shook his head at me, and said, "My master will not make mistakes. Don't worry, from now on I will pay special attention to your affairs and make sure that everything is foolproof. The greatest ability of credit knife people is not to exorcise ghosts and catch monsters, but their miraculous prophecy ability. From what happened this time, it can be seen that the calculation skills mastered by their credit card holders are much higher than Su Tianxian." After saying this, Zhang 11 sat aside and kept making calculations with his right hand. Sometimes he would take out a few copper coins and throw them on the ground. I don't know how long it took, but Miao Fengluan slowly opened her eyes. She sat up and looked a little tired, but her brows were still filled with unconcealable joy. Sky Coffin. Author, Qingnian Wanbao. Chapter 264. She stood up quickly, came to me, then held my hand tightly and said, "Grandma Miao said she will save you. But you have to leave the village to find her first." I was stunned. Leaving the village? How should I leave the village in my current situation? At this moment, a rustling sound suddenly came from the dark corner. The next moment, a small green snake emerged from the darkness. When Miao Fengluan saw the snake, she looked happy and said, "That's it. Grandma Miao said that eating the gallbladder of the snake can temporarily suppress the poisonous insects in your body." Zhang Shi heard the movement here, slowly opened his eyes, stood up, and then came to the snake. The green snake was extremely docile and did not avoid Zhang Shi when he approached. Zhang Shi grabbed the snake's head, took out the knife and took out the snake's gallbladder. From beginning to end, the green snake didn't struggle, as if it already knew its fate. Zhang Shi handed me the snake gallbladder. I took the snake gallbladder and swallowed it. The snake gallbladder enters the abdomen, and all the discomfort in the body disappears instantly. Jiangshi, I said, without further delay, you go to see Granny Meow first. I asked with some confusion, what about you? Aren't you going with us? Jiangshi shook his head and said seriously, I won't go, I want to help you break the situation. I think Jiangshi figured out something just now. In 2 days, your sister will experience a catastrophe. You must rush back. I nodded and said to him, okay, I understand, then please pay attention to safety. Jiangshi smiled and said nothing. Just like that, we got into the dungeon and walked out of the turret. It's a bit white outside, and it looks like the sun will rise soon. We separated from Jiangshi in front of the gun tower, and then left the village under the leadership of Miao Fengluan. This time, the poison in the body did not attack. Miao Fengluan took Master Gui and me towards the depths of the mountain. The sky turned white. Seeing this, Master Gui said to Miao Fengluan, it's dawn, it's time for me to leave. Then he looked at me and threatened fiercely, boy, if you dare to bully Fengluan during my absence, I will make you look good. I raised a wry smile at the corner of my mouth, don't worry, I won't bully him. Master Gui snorted softly, I'm sorry you don't dare either. After that, he disappeared in place. Now Miao Fengluan and I are the only 2 people left. I asked, where did he go? Miao Fengluan shook her head and said she didn't know either, but she added, no matter where he goes, he will find me at night. I nodded, said nothing more, and continued on my way with Miao Fengluan. Maybe it was finally time to leave this village. Miao Fengluan became visibly happy. She held her little hands behind her back and jumped up and down as she walked. She was very innocent and cute. It was her innocence and intimacy that attracted the colorful butterflies to follow her. She is like a pure and sacred flower fairy when she is in the sea of butterflies. She suddenly looked back and smiled at me, are you tired? Should we take a break? This smile touched my heart severely. I shook my head and replied, it's okay, let's keep walking. Miao Fengluan came to me, took my hand, and came to a stream. She picked up the stream water with her white hands and brought it to my mouth. I put my mouth to it and took a few sips. Miao Fengluan said, if nothing happens along the way, we can get to Grandma Miao's place in the evening. After drinking the water, Miao Fengluan and I embarked on the journey again. Sky Coffin. Author, Qingnian Wanbao. Chapter 265. In the evening, Miao Fengluan and I climbed over a mountain, and a small village came into view. Miao Fengluan pointed to the village and said to me, the people living in this village are all Gu masters. Hearing this, I frowned, why did Miao Fengluan know so much? After all, she had never left the village. Miao Fengluan seemed to see my doubts. She thought for a while and explained, after I fell into the cave, I would sneak out when the cave god was not paying attention. Then I got to know Granny Meow, and I have been to many places. It's a place. I've been to big cities too, but always at night, and I had to get back to the cave before the cave god came back. When Miao Fengluan said these words, a trace of loneliness flashed in her beautiful eyes. Her soul can go out, but her body is imprisoned here. I smiled at her and said, after this matter is resolved, I will take you outside for a walk. Miao Fengluan opened her beautiful eyes and looked at me in surprise. Her eyes were originally like stars, but the sparkle in her eyes now seemed like real stars falling into the mortal world. Really? I nodded and said, really? Miao Fengluan cheered and kept circling around me, which made me dizzy. Miao Fengluan did not take me into the village, but into the mountains opposite. Not long after walking, a small wooden house came into view. Miao Fengluan whispered in my ear, Grandma Miao has a very weird temper. Don't talk nonsense. After telling me, Miao Fengluan came to the small wooden house, raised her hand and knocked lightly on the wooden door, and shouted, "Meow Granny! Fengluan is here to find you." Coming. With a creak, the wooden door opened, and an old lady with silver hair appeared in front of me. It seems inappropriate to call the person in front of me old lady, because she has neat short hair, fair skin, and only a few wrinkles on her face, especially her clear eyes, which make people fall deeply into her eyes at a glance. When Granny Meow saw Meow Fengluan, she stretched out her hand and rubbed her little head lovingly. "Little guy, you finally came to see me in your true form." Meow Fengluan smiled and hurriedly came to me and led me to Granny Meow. "Mother-in-law, this is Luciu." I greeted Granny Meow politely. "Hello, mother-in-law." When Grandma Meow saw my appearance, she froze on the spot. She stared at me unblinkingly for a long time, and finally said, "He is indeed the grandson of that old dog. He is literally carved from the same mold." I actually heard resentment in Grandma Meow's tone. The corner of my mouth twitched slightly. The rejuvenated mother-in-law in front of me couldn't be the peach blossom debt my grandfather caused outside. Grandma Meow looked at me lightly and said, "Come in." I quickly walked in. The decoration inside the room was very simple, with a table, a chair, and a bed. Grandma Meow sat on the chair, gently picked up the teacup on the table, took a sip, and said casually, "How did Grandpa Lu Linlong do this? He couldn't even protect his own grandson." I sighed and said, "Mother-in-law, my grandfather is no longer here." As soon as these words came out, Granny Meow's hands shook and the teacup in her hand fell to the ground. She looked at me in disbelief and asked word for word, "What did you say?" I could only repeat what I just said. Grandma Meow was stunned for a long time after hearing this. There were tears in her eyes, and she sighed almost like a moan. "Well, I can't believe it. I can't believe that your grandfather has left. If your grandfather had chosen to stay here, he wouldn't have." Grandma Meow kept sighing on the side. After sighing, she looked at me and asked, "Why did you provoke those people in Bakey Village?" You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Sky Coffin. Author, Ching Nian Wanbao. Chapter 266. I told Granny Meow everything that happened in Bakey Village. Of course, I didn't tell her everything, because I am afraid that the Granny Meow in front of me is the same as Lin Duyan. After Granny Meow listened to my narrative, she stood up suddenly and slapped the table with her palm. "It seems that your grandfather taught the Lin brothers too lightly back then. If it were me, I should have torn them into pieces." The corners of my eyes twitched slightly. This Granny Meow has a bit of a fiery personality. She came to me and lifted up my clothes, followed by a stinging pain. The silk threads of the suit were so tightly connected to my bloody hands that when I pulled them, my pain nerves would be stimulated. After Granny Meow looked at my chest, she looked at my arms, ankles, and back. After reading this, her brows instantly wrinkled. She sat back on the chair, was silent for a moment and said, "The poison you were poisoned is called the body-devouring poison. Every inch of the skin of the person who is poisoned will be eaten clean by the poison. There is almost no cure for this kind of poison. The only way is to stay in 100. Only in this hellish place of Kakan can we survive." I was keenly aware of what Grandma Meow said. There is almost no solution, that is, there is still a chance. I asked, "Grandma Meow, you must have a solution, right?" Grandma Meow glanced at me lightly and said, "There is indeed a solution, but this solution is almost impossible to survive. If it succeeds, it will be a great blessing for you." Hearing this, I said, "No matter how dangerous it is, I will do it." Grandma Meow glanced at me appreciatively and said, "As expected of Lu Linlong's grandson, he is indeed not afraid of death." She stood up and said to me, "Come with me." I followed Granny Meow to the village I saw before. The architectural style of the village is generally the same as that of Baiki village. The only difference is the atmosphere. Baiki village feels eerie and lifeless. And the village in front of me is a little more vibrant. There were many villagers in the village sitting in front of their homes to enjoy the cool air. After seeing Granny Meow, they greeted her respectfully. Old patriarch. Granny Meow ignored them. The villagers focused their attention on me, their eyes showing vigilance. There are mostly women in this village, and they are all very beautiful, standard Meow beauties. Grandma Meow took us to an ancestral hall. When I saw this ancestral hall, I was slightly stunned. Why is this ancestral hall exactly the same as the one in Baiki village? And they are all Meow ancestral halls. Grandma Meow saw me so surprised and asked, "What? Does it look familiar?" I nodded and replied, "It is exactly the same as the ancestral hall in Baiki village." Grandma Meow raised a sneer at the corner of her mouth and hummed, "The villagers of Baiki village are the remnants of the Meow people who have been driven out by us." I was a little surprised when I heard this. Granny Meow continued, "Those guys secretly learned the ban on goo, did some things that were harmful to nature, and were punished by God. They were imprisoned in Baiki village forever. Unexpectedly, Baiki village actually exists like this." Grandma Meow took me and Meow Fengluan into the ancestral hall. At this moment, a girl dressed in purple Liu Yun gauze and wearing a silver pendant hat came over. "Grandma, why are you down?" The girl came to Grandma Meow and said respectfully. Grandma Meow immediately beamed when she saw the girl and said, "Grandma came down the mountain to do something." The Meow girl glanced at me and Meow Fengluan, then raised her eyebrows slightly, nodded her red lips, and said, "Grandma, why did you bring outsiders in? If the elders in the village know, that's okay." Granny Meow smiled and said, "Those old guys don't dare to say anything." After saying that, he turned back and said to me, "Boy, come with me, I will take you to the forbidden land of our Meow people." Sky Coffin. Author, Qingnian Wanbao. Chapter 267. Meow Forbidden Land? After hearing this, the girl stamped her feet anxiously. "Grandma, how can you bring outsiders into the forbidden area?" Grandma Meow glanced at her granddaughter and said with a smile, "Okay. Don't worry about it." As he said that, without waiting for what the girl was saying, he took Meow Fengluan and me to the main hall of the Meow family ancestral hall. In the main hall, incense and smoke filled the air, and countless tablets were placed directly in front of me. I saw Granny Meow coming to a sign and turning it gently. There was the sound of gears operating in the air, followed by a creak, a stone brick moved slowly, and a dark passage appeared in front of me. The girl brought a torch and said angrily, "Grandma, there is really nothing I can do against you." After saying that, she took the lead and walked in with the torch, followed closely by Granny Meow and us. The passage went all the way down and was bottomless. After walking for about 5 minutes, the scenery before my eyes suddenly became clear. The girl took a torch and ignited the torches on the surrounding walls, and the dark space became much brighter for a while. This place seemed to be a tomb, with smooth and flat walls. In front of me was a high raised platform with a huge sarcophagus placed on it. The sarcophagus is carved with various insects, including centipedes, scorpions, spiders. The sculptures of these insects are lifelike, and each tentacle can be clearly identified. The dim yellow firelight dances and reflects on the stone sculptures. The carved insects seem to have come alive, beating with the firelight. The sarcophagus exudes a bone-deep chill, which makes people feel very uncomfortable. Grandma Meow looked at me and said, "The body-eating goo is very vicious. It is impossible to remove the poison. If you want to successfully eliminate the soul-eating goo from your body, you must find a more powerful poison. Because only in this way will the body-eating goo be eliminated by the new goo." Hearing this, I broke out in a cold sweat, and asked tentatively, You mean you want to put another goo worm in my body? That's pretty much it? One body-eating goo has made me miserable. What if another one comes? Grandma Meow smiled at me and said, there are good and bad bugs. What kind of bugs you encounter depends on your luck. Listening to Grandma Meow's words, a bad premonition suddenly surged in my heart. She led me to the coffin, glanced at her granddaughter, and said, good granddaughter, open the coffin. The Meow girl hesitated and asked, Grandma, do you really want to do this? He is a mortal body. If he really enters it, he may disappear from this world in an instant. Granny Meow shrugged helplessly and said nonchalantly, this has nothing to do with me. I want to see how hard Lu Linlong's grandson's life is, and see if the old Lu family can still stay. The girl had no choice but to open the sarcophagus according to Grandma Meow's instructions. With a click, the coffin slowly opened a gap. Just a gap shocked me. Because dark green poisonous mist is coming out of this gap. I protected Meow Fengluan and backed away. The coffin was still being opened slowly, and through the swirling poisonous mist, I could vaguely see something moving in the coffin. I took a closer look and suddenly broke into a cold sweat and got goosebumps all over my body. The coffin was actually densely packed with poison. They gathered together and rolled like waves one after another. I held my breath and concentrated on carefully identifying the bugs inside the coffin. Just when I was surprised, Grandma Meow's words rang in my ears. There are thousands of species of goo insects in this coffin, more than you think. I swallowed hard and asked with some uncertainty, are you going to ask me to find a goo worm here? Sky Coffin. Author, Qing Nian Wanbao. Chapter 268. If this is really the case, then death is certain. Grandma Meow nodded, shook her head and said, you are right, but the order is reversed. It is these goo insects that are looking for you. I was horrified inside. The girl came to Granny Meow and asked, Grandma, you won't let him go on like this, will you? He will definitely die. Grandma Meow didn't say anything. She just came to the coffin and looked at the situation inside the sarcophagus. The girl came to me, took out small pills from her pocket and handed them to me secretly. She whispered in my ear, wait a minute, take this pill, so that you will not be affected violation of poisonous gas. I took the pills, thanked them profusely, and asked, then can I be immune to these poisonous insects? The girl rolled her eyes and said, what are you thinking about? This pill is only immune to the poisonous gas, not the poisonous insects. There is no cure for the body-phagic poisonous poison in your body. This is the only way to find a chance for you to survive. After hearing this, I let out a long sigh in my heart. It seems that this is the only way for now. At this moment, Granny Meow waved to me and motioned for me to come over. I quickly swallowed the pills and walked towards Granny Meow. Grandma Meow pointed to the coffin and said, the poisonous insects in this coffin are extremely poisonous. Taking out just one can cause a bloody storm. If you jump, whether you can survive or not depends on your luck. I nodded, and just when I was about to jump into the poison coffin, Meow Fengluan suddenly stopped me. The little girl's face was full of worry, and she said hesitantly, you must come back alive. I smiled slightly and replied, okay. Looking at the churning sea of insects, my expression became extremely determined, and I jumped into the poison coffin. The space of the coffin is very large. Apart from the width, the depth of this poison coffin is also extremely deep. After jumping into the poison coffin, it was like jumping into the sea, except that the sea water was replaced by insects. The bugs surrounded me and crawled all over my body. I kept falling, but luckily I took a breath before jumping down. After falling for about 10 seconds, I touched the bottom of the poison coffin. The insects were so densely packed around me that I couldn't tell what they were. Some are wet and slippery, some have distinct tentacles, and some are extremely stiff. Fortunately, These bugs haven't bitten yet. If I were bitten, I would definitely die. Suddenly, with me as the center, the surrounding insects receded like a tide. The bugs receded and I could open my eyes and breathe. I looked around and saw that these goo insects gave way one after another and kept a certain distance from me. Just when I was wondering, a colorful light came into my eyes. The colorful light is transmitted from behind the goo insect. The moment the colorful light appeared, these goo insects were like mice seeing a cat, running away like crazy. At this moment, Grandma Meow's voice suddenly came from above my head. "Boy! Come up here quickly. You can't afford to mess with that thing." I was shocked. Just as I was about to climb up, I saw the light getting brighter and brighter, becoming more and more coquettish and beautiful. Those goo insects that touched the colorful light instantly turned into flying ash. I frowned, and my intuition told me that the goo insects emitting colorful light were dangerous. Just when I was thinking about countermeasures, the goo worm had already arrived in front of me. When I saw its true appearance, I was instantly stunned. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Sky Coffin. Author, Qingnian Wanbao. Chapter 269. It turned out to be a butterfly. This butterfly is very beautiful. Its wings are as thin as cicada wings and crystal clear. The insect god exudes colorful light, which is so beautiful and beautiful. I have never seen such a butterfly before, and I was a little obsessed for a while. It wasn't until Grandma Meow's voice rang in my ears again that I finally woke up. "Boy, if you want to live, don't move." I straightened my body quickly, not daring to breathe out. The more beautiful something is, the more dangerous it is and the more untouchable it is. At the moment, the goo insects in the poison coffin regard this butterfly as a flood and retreat 3 points. Think back to those goo insects that were turned into ashes just now because of the colorful light. I couldn't help but start to get scared. This butterfly was very dreamy and ethereal. It circled and danced around me, and finally landed on the tip of my nose. Looking at it up close, what surprised me was that the butterfly's eyes actually showed a somewhat anthropomorphic look, and it was looking at me curiously. It stayed on the tip of my nose for a long time, and finally flapped its wings and flew towards my forehead. The next moment, the butterfly turned into a ray of colorful light and sank into my eyebrows. It got into my body. I can clearly feel it moving through my body. A miraculous thing happened. The body phagocytic worms that were originally parasitic in my body fled out crazily, and strips of slender scarlet worms were discharged from the surface of my skin. Some even turned into ashes before they had time to escape. Seeing this scene, I couldn't be happy at all. Because I know that this colorful butterfly is much more dangerous than the body-eating goo. It moved slowly through my body, and I kept praying in my heart, hoping that it would get out quickly. The butterfly finally stayed on my neck, and then stopped moving. Then, a sharp pain came, and I lost consciousness. When I woke up again, my head felt heavy and my limbs were weak. I struggled to open my eyes, and what I saw was the wooden ceiling. The windows were opened, and the breeze came, which made my chaotic head clearer. I felt my hand being held tightly. I turned my head and looked beside me, and saw Miao Fengluan lying in front of the bed, sleeping deeply, with tears still in the corners of his eyes that had not yet dried up. I struggled to sit up, but because of my movement, Miao Fengluan woke up instantly. She looked at me who was awake, her red lips trembled slightly, her nose twitched slightly, and tears rolled in her eyes. She couldn't help but burst into tears. "Fengluan, don't cry, don't cry. I'm fine, I just woke up." Miao Fengluan fell into my arms and started sobbing. "It scared me to death. I thought you would never wake up in this life." Miao Fengluan's cry attracted Granny Miao in, and several old ladies came in with Granny Meow. They surrounded me and stared at me with evil eyes. I was helped up by Meow Fengluan and asked Granny Meow, "Grandma, what's wrong with me?" Grandma Meow didn't say anything. She took a step forward, stretched out her hand, turned my face to one side, and then carefully looked at the right side of my neck. "What a sin! This Kijumendi actually chose you." "Kijumendi? Is it the butterfly in the poison coffin?" As soon as these words came out, several other old ladies began to talk about it, and finally said to me, "Granny Meow, old patriarch. Let's kill this kid directly. Then snatch Kijumendi back." The corners of my mouth twitched slightly. "Why would you kill me if you disagree with me?" Granny Meow said categorically, "No. We can't kill him. Since Kijumendi has chosen him, it proves that this boy and Mendi are destined. But this Kijumendi is a sacred object of our Meow tribe." Sky Coffin. Author, Qingnian Wanbao. Chapter 270. That's right. Old Patriarch, this Kijumendi was inherited by the saint, but now it has fallen into the hands of outsiders. We must find a way to get Mendi out. These old ladies, everything you say to me is inseparable from the word Mendi. Grandma Meow slapped the table and scolded, "Stop arguing." The room fell silent for a moment. Granny Meow looked at me and said, "It is their fate that Kijumendi recognizes this boy as his master. What will happen if Mendi is left in the hands of outsiders? I don't believe that Lu Linlong's grandson would be ungrateful. He would be an enemy of our Meow people." When everyone heard the words Lu Linlong, their expressions changed slightly. They looked at each other, said nothing, and could only sigh and leave. After everyone left, Granny Meow sat next to me, sighed and said, "You kid, you got a huge advantage. You were able to make Kijumendi recognize you as your master." Grandma Meow sighed on the side, not to mention how sour she looked. "Mother-in-law, what exactly is this Kijudream butterfly?" Grandma Meow glanced at me and said, "This Kijudream butterfly is the most evil and holy thing of our Meow people, and has been passed down for thousands of years. This dream butterfly has been in a deep sleep state before, and I don't know what happened yesterday, but it suddenly woke up, and then I will recognize you as my lord. It sounds like it's very powerful." Grandma Meow's expression suddenly became extremely serious. She said very seriously, "Boy, don't be complacent. I just said that this dream butterfly is the most evil and holy thing. It has its own intelligence and can understand people. Although it is powerful, it can also backfire on its master. Don't use it lightly until you get Mendi's approval." I nodded and asked again, "Then what is the ability of this Mendi?" Grandma Meow was speechless for a moment. She opened her mouth and finally said, "Actually, I don't know, because this dream butterfly has been sleeping for hundreds of years. Although it is recorded in the ancient books of my Meow people, it is only a few words. And let me tell you, mother-in-law, those who have been recognized as masters by Mendi in the past generations will eventually be eaten back by Mendi and die. The average age is no more than 23 years old." After listening, I stroked my forehead. I thought I got a trump card, but I didn't expect that I got a time bomb. After that, Granny Meow gave me a few more instructions, and then asked me where I lived now. I told her about my apprenticeship with Su Tianxian. After hearing this, Granny Meow was a little surprised and said, "You actually worshipped that girl as your teacher?" I nodded, and Granny Meow stood up and patted me on the shoulder, saying, "That girl is very powerful. If you follow her closely, your strength and safety will be guaranteed." After saying this, Granny Meow left. I looked at Meow Fengluan and asked, "How long have I been unconscious?" Meow Fengluan stretched out a finger and replied, "You were in a coma for a day." "One day." I stood up suddenly, put on my shoes and said to Meow Fengluan, "We are running out of time, we have to go back." Meow Fengluan stood up and agreed, "Okay, let's leave now. When we walked out of the stilted building, everyone in the Meow village looked at me strangely. Besides that, they were talking a lot. Meow Fengluan and I came to Grandma Meow's residence and planned to say goodbye to her. Mother-in-law, thank you for your help. Granny Meow waved her hand and said, let's go. I will ask Yu Chan to look for you after a while. After all, the saint's duty is to guard Kijumendi. Yueshan. Could it be Grandma Meow's granddaughter? After Meow Fengluan and I said goodbye to Granny Meow, we planned to return to Beiki village. On the way, Meow Fengluan kept staring at my neck. I asked with some confusion, what are you looking at? Meow Fengluan smiled slightly and replied, I was thinking that your tattoo is quite beautiful. I was stunned and asked, tattoo? What tattoo? Meow Fengluan pointed at my neck and said, butterfly tattoo. Well, if a grown man has a butterfly tattoo, it doesn't look good, it looks weird. Fengluan and I quickened our pace and arrived at Beiki village in the evening.